So Mount Everest is 29,031 feet tall above sea level. With no bottled oxygen, you would fall unconscious and suffocate with just a matter of minutes. There's certain mountains we encounter that look impossible to climb. No matter where you are in your climb, you're not alone. Just call out to Yeshua. So I quit my job and I handed out 500 flyers. It took me 2 weeks to do that job. It usually should take 2 days. So today I just want to talk about climbing your mountain. So I've actually had this teaching in my mind and my heart since the Elder Summit in 2021. And while we were at the Elder Summit that year, I just had this picture of how our walk with the Lord is very much like the process that these climbers go through in order to achieve the goal of summiting a high altitude mountain. I just want to give you a little bit of facts about Mount Everest and give you a background. So Mount Everest is 29,031 feet tall above sea level. So at its summit, it's around the same height or close to as the altitude of a commercial airliner. So can you imagine like a little kid in a commercial plane, like looking out and seeing this guy on top of a mountain waving? It's literally as high, I mean, you can even see in that picture, as what commercial airliners fly. At the summit, the oxygen level is 1/3 that of sea level, so it's really hard to breathe. A lot of people bring oxygen up with them in order to be able to climb the mountain. Very few people can do it without oxygen. The mountain grows an average of 44 millimeters a year because of the tectonic plates that it sits on, so it's always still growing very slowly at a time. It's actually not the most deadliest or hardest mountain to climb, even though it's the tallest. It's the 10th deadliest one. It's usually a 1 to 4% ratio of people that don't make it back. K2, which is the second tallest mountain, is actually the most deadliest. It has a 29% fatality rate of people that actually try and climb it. So it is a very difficult mountain to climb. So there are 5 different camp locations on the mountain, including the central base camp that climbers use to be able to climb and summit the mountain. So at the central base camp, that's where they keep the majority of all their supplies, all their oxygen, medical needs, all those different things. A lot of it is stored there, and they'll run it up to the different base camps from there when it's needed. So in order to successfully climb any high altitude mountain, especially if it's over 8,000 meters, every climber has to travel back and forth from base camp to the other campsites in order for their body to acclimatize to the lower oxygen level. So there's a long process to be able to climb a mountain like Mount Everest. It takes 4 to 6 weeks starting at base camp for people to reach the summit. This is because their body needs to acclimate to its surroundings. They're able to condition their body by climbing the mountain in increments going up and down and then climbing to the higher base camps. These climbers also have to prioritize resting at high altitude. This allows them to endure the harsh elements and low oxygen levels while they climb to the summit. So right now, if you had the ability to be teleported from here to the top summit of Mount Everest with no bottled oxygen, you would fall unconscious and suffocate with just a matter of minutes because your body's not acclimated to the environment around there. But those climbers, because they take that time and they go up, up and down, they acclimate their body, they can spend hours and hours at the harshest elements in the world. I think one of the hardest things to do when facing troubles in life is to keep moving forward, especially if whatever journey you're facing is long. There are certain mountains we encounter that look impossible to climb, and it seems as though our progress is slow, but we can take comfort in knowing that Yeshua is right there with us. I think a great example of this is found in the Passover story. The Israelites had endured slavery for 430 years. After all the plagues, God was finally commanding the Israelites to move and leave Egypt. Exodus 12:50 states this.
So all the people of Israel followed all the Lord's commands to Moses and Aaron. On that very day, the Lord brought the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt like an army.
Amen. After all that they had endured for centuries, there's finally a moment where God instructed them to move. In the reality, the Lord decimated Egypt. By the time the Israelites left, their economy, their livestock, the people were destroyed by the hand of God. They left Egypt like a victorious army. I just want to encourage you today that no matter what you're facing, God is going to make you victorious. You have to be willing to move when he calls you to move. I can't imagine being in bondage that long, in slavery and all of the harsh conditions, and then all of a sudden being told to move. And if you've ever watched any film, there's a difference between an army that is victorious marches through a gate and one that is defeated. And I was just picturing they had the face of victory as they were leaving Egypt. And I just want to encourage you, some of you today, I feel like you have your bags packed at your own base camp for a long time, and the Lord is encouraging to move. He's encouraging you to tether yourself to him and to not be afraid because you have the victory. I think some of you too, it could be traumatic, the different things that you've endured, and maybe it's hard for you to leave that place of slavery or bondage, but he's calling you to move as well because you are victorious in him. I can just share one little story that I can kind of relate to that in terms of the Lord telling me to personally move. And so this is when I made this decision to go to college. And so I was working here at our congregation at the time, and I had to have the talk with Roy Todd. I remember going into the office. I was like bawling my eyes out. I didn't want to disappoint him, but I felt like the Lord's telling me to go finish my degree. And so we worked it out so they would pay me to still lead worship. And so I came because I had a fiance at the time as well. And so I was grateful that I could still come back and forth. But it was a very hard decision because I had all these things that I was connected to here, but I really felt like the Lord was calling me to go finish my degree. And so I moved down there. I had my dad's old station wagon all packed with stuff. I moved down to college down there. I went to Regent University. It was at the beach, so that was definitely a plus for sure. So Virginia Beach. And I didn't know anybody. I knew two people that were down there. They were just gotten married, so I didn't want to be the third wheel all the time, so I'd hang out sometimes with them. But so it was a difficult transition. I'm a person who doesn't like change, and that was big change for me to have to be able to do that. But the Lord met me at every single spot. And I remember I couldn't get a job down there. I tried. I've always had a job since I was 15, and for whatever reason, no one hired me. And finally, the apartment building that I worked at, they hired me, and I was washing the siding of the apartment buildings that we lived in for $8 an hour. And so I'd worked with John Poole. He taught me how to, wash and power wash and wash houses and different things like that. I said, man, I could do this on my own. I could do one or two jobs and make what I'm making here, working 20 hours a week or whatever. So I quit my job, and I handed out 500 flyers down there. I got one job out of that 500, and it was doing a deck. It was stripping a deck of the sealer and then putting new stain on it. It took me 2 weeks to do that job, and it usually should take 2 days. And I was so nervous, all these different things. But throughout that time, I put ad in the newspaper, and I started to get just enough jobs to kind of keep me busy. But it was a difficult time, but it was a rewarding time. I was taking 6 classes in one semester, which was a lot for college. I wanted to make sure. I told Laura we had to move our wedding back a little bit. I said, okay, well, as soon as I graduate, we'll get married. So I took 6 classes in one semester to be able to kind of meet that deadline. And but the Lord met me in all those different places as well. And it really, it did something in my heart where it changed me. It made me a lot more confident in myself. It made me have to trust the Lord to meet my needs. When you're in college, it's tough to make different bills. My roommate used to take my food out of the fridge, so I'd go to the dollar store and get my ramen and keep it in my closet and all this different thing. But the Lord met every single financial need that I had, and it went above and beyond. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't moved on His direction. So I had stayed in my parents' house for a long time. I had my bags packed spiritually, but it was hard for me to move. Being able to take the one step, He showed me the rest of the way. So I just want to encourage you, there's some people here that I feel like the Lord has been calling on you to move. Maybe it's in your hopes and dreams that He's given you. Maybe it's something difficult, but I just want to encourage you, pack your bags and just follow after Him. If you take the first step, He'll always meet you where you're at. So one of my favorite scriptures states this. So let's read Isaiah 41:10.
Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand.
Amen. Whatever mountain you're facing in life, you have to make the decision to step forward. So just as important to knowing when to move is also knowing when to rest, okay? So this is like one of the top base camps at Mount Everest. And so what they do is once they climb to the higher base camp, these climbers have to spend the night just resting. They can't use a lot of energy. They have to eat and then lay down. And the reason why they do this is because it allows their blood to acclimate to the higher climate. And that means their blood literally changes. So their blood cells change and they allow more oxygen inside of their system in order to breathe. I think this is a powerful image for us as well. We need to be sensitive and know when there's hardship and chaos around us to rest in the presence of the Lord. So let's read Jeremiah 31:25.
For I will satisfy the weary soul, and every languishing soul I will replenish.
Amen. So let's go to our final point, point number 3, and that's know who your guide is. So the reason why the majority of climbers are able to make a summit of a mountain like Everest is because of their guides called Sherpas. These climbers are the ones that go before everyone and carry all the supplies and fix the ropes for every climber. They live in Nepal, close to the mountain, and have almost superhuman strength and climbing abilities because of growing up in high altitude. And I was just even thinking about that for us. Yeshua is our guide. He is even like our Sherpa. And just the image of them living close to the mountain. They know the mountain. And so the fastest recording time of climbing Mount Everest was 10 hours and 46 minutes. And it was done by a Sherpa. It was done by someone who knew the mountain. And I just want to encourage you even today that if you're struggling climbing your mountain, to trust your God because he knows what you're going through and to tether yourself to him. Give him your burdens. Don't hold on to them yourself. Allow him to help you climb whatever trial and tribulation that you're walking through because he walks the trail with you. John 10:14 says, I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me. If it's darkness, even on that mountain that you're climbing, just listen for his voice and walk close to him. No matter where you are in your climb, you're not alone. If you're just starting out or feel stuck alone at the top, just call out to Yeshua.